I've got an open letter that I want to. It's an open letter that I want to send to Scott Morrison and Bill Shorten. Scott Morrison, for those of you who have been living under a rock or don't live in Australia, he's the Prime Minister of Australia. Not elected, just fucking elected by the party. It's a clusterfuck over the last 10 years of this country. And Bill Shorten is the opposition leader, and he's in the Labor Party. Now, they're the left wing. So the Liberal Party, which is the governing party at the moment, Scott Morrison is the leader, and they are the right wing. Politics in Australia is pretty left, though. Like, it's left of where American politics is. Now, I'm just going to let you guys know that I'm going to be reading this as well, because I do my fucking research, sort of. So if I'm not looking at the camera or I'm making mistakes, I'm learning. All right, so I've got a gripe that I want to share with you guys. It's something that I've been pissed off with now for about 10 years. And I want you guys to share my pain and my anger, because I'm generous that way. This gripe is the fact that cannabis, weed, hooch, pot, ganja, marijuana is still illegal in this day and age in this country. Now, if you put the words cannabis laws in Victoria into Google, one of the first websites that you'll come across is Victorian Legal Aid. And we'll put the link in the description for those of you who are too lazy to use Google. You disappoint me. Only a little, though, because some of us are. Can you write that down? Thank you very much.
What, that you're lazy?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Write that down. Write that down, Ash.
So just notes for you guys. Jonesy is lazy. So this Victorian Legal Aid website tells you that if you're caught using or possessing a small quantity of cannabis by the police, and that's defined as under 50 grams, they do have the power to charge you with possession and use, but you can usually escape these charges, right? But here's the catch. You have to agree to counselling and attend a drug treatment centre. Now, if you don't do that, the police may charge you as a criminal, in which case you will be convicted unless you get a diversion program. I can explain that another time, or just use Google. And you will probably end up with a record. And also, you will have to pay a fine if the judge isn't feeling too merciful on the day that you attend court. And all of that is just for altering your consciousness, right? But you can go down to Liquorland and buy 6 bottles of Jack Daniel's straight, take them home, and drink till your pulse stops. Never mind that. This isn't about safety, all right? Hey, Scott, here's an idea. How about you go to the next federal election with the force of will to make cannabis legal? And you might just escape the giant hammer that is about to fall on you and your party from the Labor Party. Because I'll tell you this, Scott, there's probably more people in the Labor Party that are willing to get this done. So here's a few reasons why Scott Morrison and Bill Shorten should legalize cannabis. You ready? You ready, Sam Dog?
I got some reasons too.
Write them down for real. Yeah. I will deal with them in a sec, definitely. Number 1, because drug dealers don't ask for ID. Hey, Scott, have you ever been to a drug dealer? Or was the last time that you smoked, did you get one of your advisors or assistants to ask one of their seedy friends to buy some weed from us working class men? Yeah, I said it. Shout out to Jimmy Barnes. And I don't mean a doctor or a chemist either for some SSRIs, antidepressants, or Viagra. I mean a real drug dealer. I mean a man with a gun in the glove box and 2 knives up his sleeves because he's worried about getting robbed or stabbed for the chemicals in his pockets because he doesn't have legal protection to have the business that he has, right? I mean a real fucking drug dealer. I've been to a lot of drug dealers. Have you, Sam?
No.
Good answer. I've been to a lot of drug dealers and I've known even more. And I'll give you the hot tip, Scott, and Bill too. Just in case you didn't know, drug dealers don't ask for ID. In the 10 years that I've been going to criminals for chemicals, I've never been asked for ID. I've never been knocked back for being too drunk or high. I've never been told I can't have any because they're worried about my mental health. I've never had a discussion with the dealer about how I would taper off the drug because it's ruining my family and my life. They just fucking sell it to me and they don't care about the consequences. Hey, Scott. Hey, Bill. Make cannabis legal. Please. Take the power of money and supply and demand out of the hands of criminal gangs. Set the age restriction at 21 and tax the shit out of it to pay for drug counselling, schools, roads and hospitals. Take money from bikers and give it to nurses, Scott. Give it to construction workers. Give it to Centrelink if you so choose, Bill. Do something with it other than letting these criminal gangs make money and then invest it into shit that they don't need on the black market and launder it through everywhere else so they don't pay proper taxes. And if you don't, Bill's going to run a campaign that says he will. Even if he won't, he's going to say that he will, or his party will. Number one, drug dealers don't ask for ID. Number two, drug dealers don't just have weed. They have everything else. I remember the first time I was at a drug dealer's house and he offered me something other than what I was asking for, which was cannabis at the time. I would never smoke anymore because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But in the past, I've definitely been to these places. And the first time I rocked up there and he goes, "Hey man, do you want something else? I got speed, I got Dexies, I got Molly and Special K. I've even got Coke, but that shit'll cost you extra." And I was like, fucking what? This guy just opened the door to Alice's Wonderland. And he didn't tell me that it was the yellow brick road to hell, which is exactly, by the way, what drug addiction is. I think this stuff should be legal because of the reasons I'm going to list here. But drug addiction, any addiction, is hell. It's hell. You can't escape it. Or you can escape it, but it is hard to get back up that ladder into common sense. I'd never taken any pills or powder, and I didn't really know what they did. But now I've got, in this situation, a guy I didn't really know, without a medical degree, offering me chemicals both of us didn't know, of a purity of which we were both clueless, without a prescription, without precautions, without duty of care, without legal recourse. And without even checking my medical history to know how I would even react to these chemicals. There's no rehab plan, there's no warning labels, there's no purity testing, there's no regulation. Nothing. Except one of Fat Tony's trustworthy dealers with weed as a side gig. This is the Wild West out here, Scott. The Wild fucking West. And people are dying as a consequence. I make a lot of jokes, but this ain't a joke. People are dying because you refuse to legalize marijuana, and you know you should. Our kids are meeting these people in dark alleys, Bill, and they're doing deals with people they can't trust. They're putting their lives and safety in the hands of unaccountable criminals, and there's consequences to doing that. Consequences that I don't think you may have seen in a while, because you're too busy dealing with lobbyists and greasers. When was the last time your children walked into a dark alley in the streets of Brunswick, or Coburg, or St Kilda, or any of the red light districts in Sydney or Redfern, any of these places in the country where you got to go to these seedy motherfuckers' houses, stay there for half an hour so the neighbours don't get curious, and deal with someone who you don't know and can't trust? And if something does go wrong after a kid snorts, sniffs, or smokes pills or powder, they can't even go to the authorities, the people that we are told as children in school and by our families to trust, like ambos and cops, because they are more afraid of ending up in a court or a cage and having a shit reputation and a criminal record than they are of being dead. Dead, right? This is insane. This is sick, and this is backwards, and this makes me fucking angry. So, to every Prime Minister and leader of the opposition in this country from this point forward, here is a message for you. Every time you refuse to table a sensible bill in Parliament on this issue, and every time you stifle debate and block discussion on this issue, you are sending kids to jail, to court, to hospital, and the morgue. And they are kids that do not need to be there, and they should not be there. They should be in a drug rehab counselling centre. They should have support around them. But instead, they're going to the courts, to jail, the hospital, and the morgue. You are abdicating your responsibility to all the citizens of this nation, especially the children and families of victims and people that you continue to make criminals. You are failing as the leaders of this nation and the fathers and the mothers of this nation. You are making criminals out of the sons and daughters of this country and sending them to prison to spend time with and learn from hardened criminals. They learn from these people that they spend time with. Hardened criminals, thieves, murderers, and rapists. You are pissing away police resources, dividing communities, missing out on billions in tax revenue, stopping real entrepreneurship, and giving the power and money to gangs, thugs, traffickers, and criminals. This is what you are consciously or unconsciously doing. Fucking good job, guys. Well done in making Australia a better place to live. Fucking good job. And look, there was a time when you could have said as a politician that you didn't know any better. I will grant you that. in the time of maybe Paul Keating or Fisher, or maybe even up to John Howard, you could have said as a politician that the studies and that the information says that you should not legalize cannabis because of its damaging effects. That's understandable, right? It is the year 2019. There is enough information out there that you should know better. Get fucking studies done, right? Now is not that time. Now you know better. Now you know better. So start fucking acting like it. Make pot legal, Scott. Make pot legal, Bill. And I will vote. This is a promise. I fucking hate voting, especially because it's compulsory, but I will vote for whichever party makes pot legal. And don't put it in a plebiscite either. Don't push the onus and the responsibility for making decisions for this nation onto the citizens of this nation. Just so you can answer your lobbyists and donors saying, oh, it's what the people wanted. There's nothing we could do. We gave it to the community and they just voted that way. Grow a fucking spine and do what we elected you to do. Be the leader. Be the father this nation needs you to be. We, the voting public, from rich to poor, from black as night to bedsheet white, we have better shit to do. We have jobs to work, not careers. Jobs. We got to pay the bills. We have families to love, an economy to engage in, bills to pay, and useless shit to buy to keep this shop floating. Shop, not ship, shop. See what I did there? Well played. Thanks, mate. Now, doing what you did with the gay marriage issue, right? We don't have time to deal with this like you made us do with the gay marriage issue. That shit should have been we should have had a bill tabled, debated on, and passed to Parliament like the adults and elected officials that you are, instead of the spineless cowards that you were in giving the responsibility to the people. That's like letting the youngest brother decide whether the older sister is allowed to get married. Your mum and dad. Now you should fucking act like it. So act like it now, please. Do your job and make cannabis legal, Scott. Make cannabis legal, Bill. Number 3. So number 2 was... Whoops. Don't do that. Number 2 was drug dealers don't just have weed. They have everything else. Now, number 3, hemp and CBD. Anybody who knows anything about cannabis knows the major benefits of the production and sale of hemp. Here's a few uses for hemp. Human food, pet food, body oils and lotions, oil-based products, clothing, plastic, paper, construction materials, biofuel, right? Imagine the emerging markets and the innovation that would come from making hemp and cannabis legal. Everything from biofuel to paper and tools. Imagine the tax revenues that you would generate. Now, and that's just from hemp, right? Now, the other major benefit of making cannabis legal is the medical benefits of CBD. If you don't know what that is, put into Google cannabis and CBD. If you look this up on Google, you'll be met with a myriad of stories and studies that indicate that CBD, the non-psychoactive part of cannabis, has helped children with epileptic seizures and is also used as an anti-inflammatory. And if you're skeptical of what I just said, and you should be, because I just said it, I haven't given you any details, we don't yet have enough data on cannabis to warrant it becoming an endorsed medicine by the medical community. Right? I understand that, and I'm fully willing to admit that, which leads me to exactly my next point. Number 4, doctors, drugs, and research. I don't have kids. Do you have kids, Sam?
No, mate.
I don't have kids. We
I
don't
have a
kids.
dog.
You have a dog?
It's not my kid.
Your dog's not going to smoke weed, hopefully.
Sometimes I wish he did. Just fucking calm him down a little bit. Fuck.
So I don't have kids, but when I do, and when they're old enough to start asking questions about weed, I want them to be able to go to a doctor with or without me to find out the pros and cons of consumption of cannabis. Instead of having to trust the no ID, no duty of care drug dealer, only interested in a profit at my children's expense. And I want that doctor to be able to read and reference peer-reviewed medical journals and double-blind placebo studies on this issue, instead of going onto Wikipedia and hoping for the best. I want to know how much stronger weed is today than it was 30 years ago and why. I want to know the effects of short-term and long-term use on the brain. I want to know what effect it has on males and females of all ethnicities and ages, legal ages. I want a database of information on cannabis like we have on tobacco, alcohol, antidepressants, opiates, and so much more. But we can't have that, Scott, can we? We can't have that because it's still illegal, isn't it, Bill? It's still illegal, isn't it, Scott? Listen, I work between 45 to 65 hours a week, and I always pay my taxes. I don't see why I and people like me can't have a toke if we like. We can smoke till we die and drink till we cry, but the government tells us we can't get high. Listen to that again. I can smoke till I die and drink till I cry, but the government tells us that we can't get high. Make it legal, Scott. Make it legal, Bill. And you will win the next federal election. Number 5, and I think this is the last one. Social and societal consequences in the real world. I'm a bouncer and I deal with the consequences of alcohol every night. Drunk men with the devil in their eyes looking to prove that they're a man. Or drunk women looking to drown their sorrows and forget their memories. Partying, drinking, fighting and fucking. All done when they're drunk as a sailor on shore leave. I would love to work as a bouncer in a cannabis bar, right? Right? Where my biggest problem would be blokes trying to break into the vending machine to steal the Mars bars and twisties. All you would have to do is mention the cops are on their way and use the words hot fuzz, and they'd be out of there in a heartbeat. Do you know how hard it is to deal with a drunk patron in a nightclub who smashed and offended that someone tried to touch their girlfriend's ass? Or they smashed a glass on the bar and they're trying to slash the guards' throats because they don't want to get carried out onto the street. It's fucking horrible. And I mean it's horrible. I've met the devil in nightclubs, mate. I've fucking met him. A man who has the animus of anger and rage in his eyes because alcohol allows him to be who he really is without the social restrictions and prohibitions on his emotions. It's horrible. And all because they can drink till they pass out or get kicked out. But weed's still illegal, isn't it, Scott? Isn't it, Bill? So, in conclusion, this is my case. Make pot legal for the following reasons. Drug dealers don't ask for ID. Drug dealers don't just have weed, they have access to everything else. And they are more than willing to give you and me and our children access to everything else. Number 3, hemp and CBD. Number 4, research and studies. Number 5, social consequences. Lastly, Scott and Bill, I know I've been brash and I've been arrogant and cocksure in this video. And to a degree, I'm sorry for that. Because I know that you do have a hard job. Look, being the leader of a country is a hard job. Being the opposition leader is a hard fucking job. But I implore you now, please stop listening to lobbyists from alcohol and pharmaceutical companies, religious organizations and conservative groups who are intent on keeping our sons and daughters behind bars for selling and using cannabis. Instead, allow them to become entrepreneurs, making money and contributing to our communities and the economy. And then tax the fuck out of them to pay for tax cuts for the middle class and public health, wealth and infrastructure schemes. Please stop wasting police resources and creating more division between them and their communities they serve and protect. Because believe you me, they do serve and protect. Being a police officer is one of the hardest jobs in the world. And to make them do shit that they shouldn't be doing by going up to teenagers and asking why they're smoking a joint, like, it's just useless. It's useless. And it creates division because kids don't want to snitch. All right. Instead, when a 16-year-old gets asked where they're smoking a joint, no, I got it from the chemist, or I got it from Coles, or I got it from somewhere down the road, a legal establishment where they don't use guns and violence. Instead of doing that, allow them to use their time and resources, the police, to follow more important issues like domestic violence, murder, theft and rape, political corruption, human trafficking and sex slavery, fraud in the banking system, which is very recent, people driving, drug driving, and texting and driving, which fucking irritates me because I ride a motorcycle.
YouTube predators.
Right? YouTube predators and pedophiles, sex offenders, etc., 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 etc. There's so many things, there's so many more things that the cops could be doing instead of chasing drug dealers and drug users around in circles. Because the truth is, we are all drug users. Every single one of us. Even you, Scott and Bill, you are a drug user and that's okay. Some of us just pick the ones that are already legal. So please stop acting like prohibition works. It doesn't fucking work. Anybody who's read any history of the last 100 years knows that prohibition does not work. We've spent trillions of dollars worldwide on trying to stem the flow of drugs into Western nations. And you know what we've got for all that wasted time, wasted lives, and wasted money? Backwards. Even worse than just nowhere. Even worse than nowhere. Backwards. There's more drugs, more dealers, and more users than ever before. Way more. And the drugs are more potent and more pure than they ever were before. If we had to harness the power of intelligently legalizing only cannabis back in the 1980s, we would have hundreds of billions of dollars more in the economy, much safer communities, and we'd know a lot more about weed than the rest of the world combined right now, especially with the level of scientists in this country. Prohibition does not work. Anybody worth their salt knows that. So please, Bill, please, Scott, make it legal. Do it for your family. Do it for your children. Do it for your grandchildren when they eventually encounter either a drug dealer who doesn't give a fuck about them or you, or a chemist or a doctor who's going to ask them questions about their mental health, about their physical health. Do it for your family. Do it for your country. And do it for the children that will grow up into the country that you create. Listen, I'm a motherfucking patriot. I wear a cowboy hat for a reason. Because I just fucking want to. I love Australia. I love it. This country has afforded me and Sam the opportunity for health and happiness and meaning and knowledge unknown to most people in all history. It is an amazing country. I fucking love this country. I love Australia, especially because I've spent time outside of it. I love it. This country deserves better than having laws born of ignorance and leaders that cannot lead but only follow the past. So I implore you, Scott and Bill, please make cannabis legal. And we can go from there. That's it.
That was lovely.
Thank you very much.
Fuck yeah.
Thank you very much.
I fucking agree. Everything you
Appreciate
said.
that.
The first thing that popped into my mind was the amount of fucking money they would make.
Yeah.
You see, like,
Yeah.
that's so... Cigarettes and alcohol are taxed 300% more.
Yep.
And they make millions and millions a year off it. Gambling,
Yep.
pokies...
Yep.
And all of these addictions.
And here's the deal.
Caffeine,
right now,
tobacco.
I'm gonna smoke a cigarette right now.
That's a drug, mate.
Right. And the government is allowing me to do that, which I think they should, right?
People have died from tobacco.
Exactly.
People die from weed.
500,000 people in the US die from tobacco every year. There is not a single recorded death from marijuana consumption in history.
Yep.
Now, there are certain times where you'll get someone that drives high or does some shit high that they shouldn't.
Yeah, cause of
Just don't fucking drive high.
Yeah.
Don't drive drunk. Don't drive high. And don't text on your phone, you stupid cunts. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's my deal, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the money's the thing that just... If you want to argue the medical reasons, you want to argue everything, it's all right. But the amount of money the government would make from it is just... It's beyond me. Like, tax that shit. Fuck, you know how cheap it is to grow?
Yep. And then
fucking tax it. I don't care if I still pay the same price as I do now.
Yep. And then I'll tell you what happens, right, is that Scott Morrison can go to the next election or Bill Shorten can go to the next election and they can say, hey,
Thanks, TAF.
no. Oi, motherfuckers, we're going to legalize weed and we're going to tax the shit out of it so those stoners have to pay their price. And then we're going to give a tax cut to the middle class. Fucking win!
Just put the money back in.
Yeah.
Take the money off us. Put it back into the nurses, the schools, education.
Or pay off the Australian national debt. How about that, Scott? You liberal.
Oh, fuck.